Welcome back to Bears News Fan Report, your home for everything Chicago Bears. The regular season is officially over, and that means the draft order is locked in. We're sitting at pick 25, and while everyone's focused on the obvious needs along our defensive line, there's a name circulating in drafts that could completely change how we approach building this defense for the next decade. I'm talking about a linebacker out of Columbus who's been absolutely dominating at the college level, a player some analysts have in their top 5 overall. And today I'm going to break down why the Bears need to be paying very close attention to this situation. Stay with me because what I'm about to lay out could represent the kind of bold, strategic, separate, good franchise from great. Before we dive into this, make sure you're subscribed to Bears News Fan Report and hit that notification bell because over the coming weeks leading up to the draft, I'm going to be bringing you exclusive analysis, prospect breakdowns, and strategic insights you won't find anywhere else. This is your direct connection to understanding every decision shape future of our beloved Bears. Let me start painting a picture where we are as an organization. Our defense shown flashes brilliant, but let's be honest, we've also shown some glaring weakness that opposing offense exploited repeatedly. The interior defensive line has been problematic, absolutely, and that's why most mock drafts have us taking Caden McDonald from Ohio State at our spot. It makes sense on paper. We need help stopping the run, we need interior pressure, and McDonald is a talented defensive tackle who could contribute immediately. But here's where I want you to think differently. Championships aren't won by simply filling holes, predictable pick. Championships are won by identifying elite talent and finding creative ways to get that talent on your roster, even when conventional wisdom says they're out of. And right now, there's a linebacker prospect who embodies exactly the kind of impact player that can transform an entire defensive unit, the kind of player who can make everyone around him better, the kind of player who checks every single box you want in a modern NFL linebacker. Ohio State has been a factory for NFL talent, and this year's class from Columbus is absolutely loaded. We're talking about multiple first-round picks, players who've competed at the highest level of college football, players who've been tested in massive games against elite competition. The Big Ten has been brutal this season, and the players who've thrived in that environment are the ones who translate best to the NFL. That's just a fact supported by years of draft analysis and professional success rate. Now, the linebacker position in today's NFL is more valuable than ever. You need linebackers who can cover, who can blitz, who can shed blocks, and make tackles in the run game. You need versatility, you need intelligence, you need the kind of instincts that can't be taught. You need players who can diagnose plays pre-snap, adjust on the fly, and make game-changing plays when everything is on the best linebackers in the league. Guys like Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, and Micah Parsons, they're not just filling a position, they're dictating what offenses can and cannot. Think about our linebacker situation. We've got some pieces, sure, but do we have that elite game-changing presence in the middle of our defense? Do we have the guy who quarterbacks the defense, who elevates everyone around him, who opposing coordinator have to scheme around? That's the conversation we need to approach, because adding that kind of could be the difference between being a competitive team and being a legitimate contender in the NFC North. The 2026 draft class is fascinating because of how it's shaping up. You've got 2 elite quarterbacks expected to go 1-2 in Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore. After that, the board gets really interesting. Teams with glaring needs will reach for positions of desperation, which means elite talent, other positions, could potentially slide further than anyone expects. This is where smart organization capital, this is where having a clear-eyed evaluation, talent versus need, becomes crucial. Let me tell you about a linebacker who's been absolutely terrorizing offense in the Big Ten. We're talking about a player who combines elite athleticism with exceptional football IQ, a player who can drop into coverage and match up with tight ends and running backs, who can blitz off the edge and get home against the quarterback, who can flow sideline to sideline and make tackles that other linebackers simply can't make. A player who's proven he can perform in the biggest game, under the brightest light, against the best competition college football has to offer, Arvell Reese. That's the name I need you to remember as we move through this draft process. The Ohio State linebacker has been one of the most dominant defensive defensive players, and he's currently projected by multiple draft analysts picks. Some mocks have him going 3rd overall to the Arizona Cardinals. That's the level of talent we're discussing here. That's the caliber of player who could completely transform what our defense is capable of achieving. Now I know exactly what you're thinking. We're picking 25th. How on earth would we get Arvell Reese if he's projected to go in the top 5? And that's a legitimate question that deserves a thoughtful answer, because there are actually several scenarios where this becomes possible, and every single one of them represents the kind of aggressive, championship-focused thinking that Ryan Poles should be considering. First scenario, Reese slide. It happens every single year. Players projected to go in the top 10 end up falling for various reasons. Maybe teams ahead of us prioritize quarterback, offensive linemen, and edge rusher. Maybe concerns about position value cause teams to hesitate on a linebacker, even one as talented as Reese. The draft is unpredictable, and value-conscious teams in the middle of the first round can end up with players they never dreamed would be available. If Arvell Reese is somehow sitting there at pick 25, we cannot hesitate. We cannot overthink it. We take him and celebrate the incredible value we just secured. Second scenario, and this is where it gets really interesting, we trade up. The Bears have accumulated draft capital over the past few years. We have assets we could package to move up the board if there's a player we're convinced is a franchise-changing talent. Trading up from 25 to somewhere in the 8-12 range isn't as expensive as you might think, especially if we're willing to part with future pick. And if Reese starts to slide past those first few selections, that's when you make your move. That's when you get aggressive and go get your guy. Let me break down why Reese is worth that kind of. His tape is absolutely elite. He's got the size you want at 6'3" and 240 pounds, but he plays faster than those measurements suggest. His ability to diagnose plays is exceptional, consistently putting himself in position to make plays before the offense even fully develops. His coverage skills are NFL ready right now. He can drop into zones, match up man-to-man, comfortable, and when he blitzes, he's got legitimate pass rush ability from the linebacker position, which is incredibly valuable in today's NFL. But beyond the physical tools and technical skill, there's something else that makes Reese special. He's elite. He's the guy organizing the defense, pre-snap, sure everyone's aligned, adjustments seeing from the offense. That kind of leadership is invaluable, especially for a Bears defense that's been looking for that vocal, commanding presence in the middle of the field. When you add a player like that, when you add someone who elevates everyone around him through his play and his leadership, that's when defenses take the next step from good to great. Consider what our defense could look like with Arvell Reese at linebacker. Suddenly, we're not just hoping to contain we're dictating term. We're forcing quarterbacks to adjust their protection check-up play. We're eliminating windows before they even open, flying around all over That's the vision, and Reese is the kind of player who makes that vision a reality. The Ohio State connection is also worth noting. We've already shown we're willing to target Buckeyes in this draft, with McDonald being the consensus pick for us at 20 foot. Reese represents a different level of impact. He's the kind of player you build your defense around, the kind of player who's on the field for all 3 downs, the kind of player who's going to the Pro Bowl multiple times during his. That's not hyperbole. That's what his tape and his production suggest he's capable of becoming at the next level. Now, let's talk about the practical consideration. If we trade up for Reese, we're likely sacrificing future draft capital and potentially not addressing the interior defensive line in the first round. That's a real cost that has to be weighed carefully, but consider the alternative approach. Take Reese available or trade up to get him, then address the defensive line in the second and third rounds or through free agency. There are quality defensive tackles available in this draft beyond the first round, and we have the resources to add veteran help in free agency if we choose to go that route. The key question is this: do we believe Arvell Reese is a generational talent at the linebacker position, the kind of player who comes along once every few years? If the answer is yes, and I believe it should be yes based on everything we're seeing from him, then you find a way to get him. You don't let conventional draft wisdom or positional value stop you from adding a player who can be the centerpiece of your defense for the next decade. Here's what I'm watching for as we move through the pre-draft process. First, where does Reese actually end up in the consensus draft ranking? If he starts sliding down boards, or if concerns emerge about position value, that increases the chances he's available later in the first round. Second, what are other teams ahead of us prioritizing? The more quarterback-needy and offensive line-needy teams there are in the top 15 picks, the better chance a player like Reese lies. Third, what's Ryan Poles' appetite for trading up? Has he shown that kind of aggression before? And is he willing to do it for the right player? The reality is, we need difference makers on defense. We need players who can single-handedly change games, who can make the plays that shift momentum, who can be counted on in crucial situations. Arvell Reese is that kind of player. Whether he ends up being realistically available to us or whether we need to trade up to get him, he represents exactly the type of talent the Bears should be pursuing if we're serious about competing for champions. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to hear your thought. Would you be in favor of the Bears trading up to get Arvell Reese sliding in the draft? Do you think a linebacker, even one as talented as Reese, should be the priority over addressing the interior defensive line? Or would you rather we stay at 25, take the best player available, and trust that we can build a championship defense through multiple picks and free agency? Leave your comments below, because this is kind of strategic matters as we approach one of the most important drafts in recent Bears history. Second, subscribe to Bears News Fan Report, haven't already, because I'm going to be breaking down every scenario and every strategic decision between now and draft day. And third, hit that notification, never miss an update when breaking news or when I release new analysis. This Bears fans come formed passionate coverage of our team, and I want you to be part of this community. Attention runs through the decision era foot. Arvell Reese presents the kind of bold, franchise-altering talent we should be pursuing. Let's see if Ryan Poles has the vision and the courage to make it happen. Bear down.